Hey, I like Sonic. Unfortunately for my own sanity, I will always like Sonic, no matter what kind of mess he gets into. So what do I think about Sonic Superstars, the newest Sonic game that just released earlier this month? It's fine, maybe, I don't know. Don't get me wrong, I wanted to love this game. I wanted this game to be amazing. I wanted this game to outdo games like Mania and Generations. I was ready for this to be my favorite classic Sonic game, maybe even my favorite Sonic game, period. Even after some less than favorable news came out about it, I was still ready to love this game and have my expectations surpassed. Unfortunately, this is just not the game I wanted it to be. Before I tear certain parts of this game to shreds, I'd like to start with what I like. And there's genuinely a lot to really like here. First of all, this is shocking, but Sonic actually feels like Sonic the Hedgehog in this game. It's pretty crazy to play a brand new Sonic game in 2023, and it actually has pretty smooth physics, and they haven't messed up everything with like a layer of jank on top of it. I think it's a little bit too hard to get fully moving sometimes, and to me the spin dash and drop dash feel kind of off, but even so, the game overall feels really natural and accurate to the classic games, and that's all I really wanted. And also, playing as Amy is actually super fun in this game. She's definitely my favorite character to play as in Superstars, and I hope she continues to get playable appearances where she gets an extra jump like in this and Frontiers. Having a double jump in Classic Sonic works surprisingly well. Most of the main stages in Sonic Superstars are also like really good. Outside of the boss fights, which I'll get to, the main stages are generally really solid. And considering how many Sonic games have that one part, it's nice how fun and well done most of the levels in this game are. And aesthetically, everything holds up well too. While I think all of these broader stage themes are a little too safe, especially when you compare them to Sonic 3 or Mania, there's enough clever ideas to make them stand out at one point or another usually. Some of my favorites were Bridge Island, Speed Jungle, and Press Factory. But the biggest highlight overall for me is specifically Pinball Carnival Act 2, which is where the stage transforms from a more generic Sonic Carnival level into a haunted Eggman-themed carnival that blows up as you run through it. It's seriously cool, and even though most of the levels are at least good, I wish the game had more standout stages like this one. I also really like the special stages in this game. They feel sufficiently skill-based and have a satisfying momentum to them, and they're not as frustrating as a lot of the earlier special stages. Getting all the emeralds in this game was actually a good time to be for once. Along with the game feeling nice to play and the stages being really good, there's a lot of great songs on this soundtrack. This was expected, it's a Sonic game, but nearly every stage theme is a banger. You can really tell which songs were worked on by each composer, and for the most part they're all really great. Speed Jungle and Pinball Carnival both had songs that were previewed before their release, and those are just as good as I expected them to be, but there's also some really surprising tracks, like Lagoon City Act 2, which reminded me a lot of some of the chiller songs from Sonic CD in all the right ways. There really is a lot of great music here. Unfortunately, this is where my praise for this game ends. I'll start with the rest of the music, cause, ugh. You just heard the entire melody to the main boss theme in this game. Before this game came out, everyone thought the boss themes we heard were placeholders. There was no way we were getting these dry, empty short loops in the same game that has absolute bangers from T-Loads. Right? Wrong. The main boss theme is like a 10-second loop with that same sort of grating synth from Sonic 4, and it usually loops before the actual boss fight even starts. Jun Senue is a good composer, but someone needs to tell him that just because it's a classic Sonic game doesn't mean he has to make all of these extremely half-hearted, empty, retro-style songs. Even though the world map is also optional, I want to draw attention to the song that's used there, because that loop is even shorter than the boss theme, and it's not any less grating. Not all of the music that Jun made is this bad. I actually think the mini-boss theme is fine, and there's some other Genesis-style songs that sound pretty decent, but regardless, the soundtrack is a big mixed bag. About 40% of it is super underwhelming at best, and it's the first time there's even been a Sonic soundtrack this messy, to be honest. Even in Sonic games that have weak points in the music, or entirely uninteresting soundtracks, there's at least like a level of cohesion that just doesn't exist in this game. There's some really great songs, but then some of them sound borderline unfinished. It's very weird. It's not just some of the music that makes this game sound bad though, because the sound design, oh god, the sound design. Barring maybe the weird volume issues in SA2, this is probably the worst audio a Sonic game has ever had. There are lots of repeated uses of unfitting sound effects, and multiple instances of sound effects overlaying on top of each other and increasing the volume of that one sound. There are sections where you ride this slow floating platform and it just makes this loud ear-grating noise the entire time, and I just don't understand how they got away with the sound being this bad. When you go into a special stage, it makes a regular ring sound. Why? But, like, all the things I'm talking about right now are just aesthetic. They're just audio. It can't be that bad if all the stages are mostly good, right? Right? Wrong again. The bosses in this game, well, I kind of enjoyed a few of them. Pretty much every single one is designed around waiting for a very specific small period to attack, and then standing around and waiting, and waiting, and waiting. This is somewhat common in Sonic bosses, but it has never been this prevalent or this padded out like these bosses are. One of the worst examples is the first boss fight with Fang, which primarily consists of moving through a floating platform obstacle course until eventually you get the chance to hit him once. This boss is about 4 minutes long, which I know doesn't sound that bad, but in the context of a level that's like maybe 5 minutes long at the most, playing a 4-minute long section that's almost entirely just standing around isn't good, even if you don't end up dying and having to restart. But relatively, this isn't that bad. No, the worst example shows up in the final boss, which has a first phase that's pretty easy, but extremely slow, taking like 4 to 5 minutes every single time, and then another phase that's also pretty long right after that, which requires really precise jumps, and usually if you get hit at all will make you fall to an instant death. Dying during this boss sends you all the way back to the aforementioned slow first phase because this game has no checkpoints during any boss fight, regardless of how long they are. The amount of time I wasted dying on certain bosses in this game makes me forget they even removed the life system at all, because I genuinely would have rather had lives and game over, because then I'd at least get to play the fun actual level again. I have nothing against difficult games, even if I am admittedly a bad gamer, but this is not fun difficulty. Even in a best case scenario where you're not constantly dying, the bosses in this game completely disrupt the pace of the game in a way classic Sonic bosses have never really done, and it just sucks. Oh, and speaking of sucking, let me talk about the battle mode. God, this mode is bad. All they had to do is let us race through the levels like in Sonic Mania. They were so close to that, and instead we got an incredibly bare-bones package with multiple game modes, none of which are good outside of the race mode. But if you only wanted to play that one, or any of the others, too bad, because the only way to play this battle mode is in matches consisting of 3 randomly picked rounds followed by the game automatically closing the lobby. It's baffling to me how they can program an entire robust robot customization feature, but they can't let me just directly invite people without a clunky code, or pick the modes I'd like to play, or let me keep playing about the lobby closing every 3 rounds. They fumbled so hard, and I'm genuinely baffled why they didn't just have Mania's multiplayer mode but with online play. And then there's just this game's general lack of content. I don't think 2D platformers can't be full price, or that every game needs to have hundreds upon hundreds of hours in content, but this game has like 5 hours of actually unique gameplay in it, if I'm being generous. For a game that's this short and has this many major issues, the current price of $60 US is kind of unacceptable to me. Even more so when you consider this game has a $70 deluxe edition, pre-order bonuses, and other limited DLC that requires you to spend money. This game doesn't do anything to justify being 3 times the price of Sonic Mania, a game that's also more polished, more consistent, and better designed, in addition to having more worthwhile content. When you look at it from that lens, Superstars is super disappointing. Also, this happened to me. Anyways, I still want to add that none of this is to say that you are wrong for enjoying this game. I would actually go as far to say it's an above average game in the grand scheme of the Sonic series, and I did have fun with it. Sonic Superstars isn't bad. I can understand someone with a lot more tolerance for some of these issues really liking it, but to me it's just okay, and that makes me kind of sad, because it could have been great. Thanks for watching. If you played Sonic Superstars, how did you feel on it? Oh, and more importantly, I somehow hit 1,000 subscribers. I never thought I'd actually hit this milestone, but I'm here. I want to thank every single one of you that pressed that wacky button for helping me get to this point. This seriously means a lot to me. I'm not stopping here though. I have huge plans for this channel in the future. But until then, see ya!